Shelby, this is your debut novel that then went on to become an enormous bestseller and is now a film starring the legendary Sally Field. What has that experience been like?
Yeah, I mean, she is totally legendary. It's a lot of days doesn't feel like my life. Like I just don't know how I landed here. But no, it's really incredible to think back to the time when I was like drafting this novel and really thinking like probably nothing is going to come of this. But it was at a time where I just felt like I needed to write it. I needed to say like I've finished a book, even if it goes in a drawer. And then to have it go basically anywhere but in the drawer. It went out into the world, and now it's a film with a legendary cast. So yeah, it's beyond what anything that I could have imagined.
Yeah, I truly can't imagine how wonderful that must be. Olivia, for you, so you have directed big adaptations before, specifically Where the Crawdads Sing, and The Last Thing He Told Me. So you're no stranger to bringing these beloved books to life. What was it that drew you specifically to Remarkably Bright Creatures? And was there anything that you were specifically nervous about or really excited about?
Yes. Well, the Brian Unkelis, who produced my first movie, First Match, he sent me the book after they had optioned it and they had attached Sally to play Tova. And so he told me that, it's this book with this amazing character of an octopus, and Sally Field is attached to play Tova. So I knew Sally Field and octopus. So I was already intrigued. And I love, even before reading Shelby's book, I was really loved octopuses. I had seen my octopus teacher and sadly had to stop eating octopus after that. But so I was intrigued. I would say what really pulled me to the story to think about making it into a movie were really the relationships and the characters in the book. I loved the character of Tova. She reminded me of, she's like an amalgamation of so many women in my life. And I loved how her struggle is paralleled by a boy in his 30s who couldn't be more different than her, but is actually finding himself similarly at a crossroads, is also carrying this heavy grief on his shoulders. And then, of course, Marcellus, who doesn't love the snarky voice of an octopus who keeps pointing out to us human beings how badly designed we are. Um, was I scared of making a movie with an octopus as a character? Absolutely. And also so excited for the challenge in every way.
That's actually a perfect lead in to like one of my biggest questions coming into this is starting from when I read the book, I love Marcellus, like one of my favorite characters in recent contemporary fiction. He just has my whole heart. So really, I just wanted to hear more about for both of you what it was like crafting him, what it was like bringing him to the screen. I mean, an octopus is uh, a unique challenge for a bunch of reasons, especially, not just because he's not a human, but because he's not even like a dog or a cat or a bird, they're kind of like aliens.
But I mean, I think that's why he was kind of a blank slate in a way, because there hasn't really been, like you have many dogs in literature and
Mhm.
film and even birds and cats and things, but has anyone ever done an octopus like this? I don't think
Mm,
so.
yeah.
So, it was kind of a blank slate. Um, in terms of writing, the original character in the book, I really wanted him to feel like real. I wanted everything that he was doing in his world to be possible for an octopus to do. As outlandish as the premise is, I didn't want it to feel like a fantasy. I wanted
Mhm.
it to feel like a very real world, realistic fiction where you just happen to have this narrative voice that pipes in every few chapters. And I think that really is kind of how you guys approached it in the film as
Yeah.
well.
Well, that's what guided us in the movie is that it was clear that Shelby had created this very real, grounded place, this setting and characters that felt very relatable and very human. And so the octopus had to fit into that world and not take us out of it and suddenly, distract us from that reality. So he had to be as real life looking as possible. And so the challenge was how do we create first of all, can we shoot a real octopus in this role? We very quickly learned, no, you cannot, because they will not be trained. And so then, could we shoot footage of an octopus and have a CGI octopus and interchange them seamlessly in the movie? And that was what we set out to do. So that was the bar that we set, to create a CGI octopus that we could use in the movie for very specific kinds of locking, and then also integrate some real footage of the octopus that we based Marcellus on, who's a real octopus that lived at the Vancouver Aquarium, named Agnetha. And so we have footage of both Agnetha and, of course, our CGI in the movie.
Oh, I need to keep my mouth shut, because I was going to say a potential spoiler, but
Yeah.
I love that.
Yeah.
Something that's really special about this story to me, and I think to a lot of people, is it's one of the only books, if not the only book in recent memory, that both my mom and I adored. We both read a lot, but we read very different things. And it's no surprise this movie is coming out right around Mother's Day. And the story deals a lot with intergenerational relationships. So I'm curious, is it about this story that you both think is able to speak to such a wide variety of people across ages, across demographics?
Well, I think the struggles that they're going through are so similar, even though they're in different generations and very different life circumstances and even different species. If we're talking about, Tova and Cameron and Marcellus all kind of being on the same journey, even though it looks very different at first blush. I think some of the themes that the story touches on, like loneliness, grief, kind of allowing yourself to become just kind of isolated and stuck, are truly things that, like, everyone feels these things at some point. So, it, no matter what the individual circumstances look like that each of those characters are going through, they end up having that in common, and being able to help each other, like, move out of those sort of stuck spaces and into a better place.
Yeah. And I certainly, when I was reading the book, one of the things that I connected to personally was that intergenerational relationship. And I have people in my life who are really important to me, who I consider some of my closest friends, who are in their 80s. And I cherish that relationship because of the perspective that they bring that's so different than mine, even when we're going through similar life choices, at different phases of life. And I just think that being able to relate to these characters who are all different ages is one of the reasons that it's so, it's a book that is so digestible to such a wide range of ages and people, because it's, those experiences are so relatable.
I have time for one more question. Which characters do you each relate to the most?
For me, the hardest character to write was Cameron.
Yeah.
Just to get him exactly kind of prickly enough to just, like, make you want to shake him a little bit, but you still love him. And sometimes when I'm talking to, like, book groups or whatever, they want to know, like, well, where did these characters come from? And I have to admit that a lot of Cameron came from me when I was in my 20s and sort of having some of these growing pains. And I was probably the person that people in my family wanted to shake at some point. So I relate to him a lot.
That's interesting. I was going to say the same thing, Shelby, that he frustrated me the most, but I think it's because I saw so much of my own youth in him, and of, feeling stuck and knowing that you have a dream and not knowing how to get there. And so just wanting to be angry at all the circumstances instead of sort of owning up to the fact that, well, it's just because this dream is hard,
Yeah.
So yeah, I'd probably relate most to Cameron.
Well, thank you both so much. This was a pleasure. Best of luck. I'm going to be telling everybody that they need to watch it.
Yay. Thank you.
Thank you.